Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? How's your Sunday going? I wasn't thinking I was going to have to make another sit-down video for the Seahawks for maybe several days, maybe even over a week, but well, we've gone and done it. The day after the draft concludes, we have done what I have wanted us to do for a couple of months now. Honestly, you might even be able to say they've done what I wanted them to do for the last 6 months. They have moved on from two offensive line starters from last year. They have released DJ Fluker and they have released Justin Britt, meaning we will have new starters at the center and right guard positions in 2020, assuming we have a season, which do not pretend like you know for a fact whether or not we will have a season this year, because that's a very real concern, and I'm not going to make any assumptions right now. But these two moves, I'm happy. I mean, look, I know you're not supposed to be happy when a man loses his job. He's trying to feed his family. He's trying to take care of his family. He's trying to take care of himself. I get that. But these are two guys who we have paid millions of dollars over the last couple years. Britt especially has probably made somewhere around $35 million in his time in Seattle. So it's what it is. I'm just thinking about this in terms of football. And in terms of football, I can say that Justin Britt has had a decent career here in Seattle. Took him a while to find his footing, but once he moved to center, he became, in my opinion, a really solid player for a few years, and he's really held things down in the middle for us. But I can also say that his play had been falling off the last couple years, and that combined with his ACL injury made me really eager to move on from him in 2020, and we have. The move saves us about $8 million in cap space, so it's a very financially sound move. And then that brings us to DJ Fluker. He's given us a decent 2 years. He was really good in 2018, 2019. He fell back. He took a step back in his game, a big step back in my opinion, and he was not what we needed in this offense anymore in my opinion. He was a weak pass blocker. He frequently got hurt. Even his run blocking was starting to leave something to be desired. So cutting him saves about $3.7 million against the cap and only $500,000 in dead money there. The Brit cut will leave us close to $3 million in dead money, but it's still well worth it. And this makes it very likely that Damian Lewis will be a day one starter at the right guard position, replacing Fluker. And it also means that we probably know what BJ Finney is going to do this year. He will be lining up for us at center. I've been clamoring for this team to be a little more realistic about their players. I've been saying it for a while now. It seems like we are looking at some of these players and we're just being a little pie in the sky about how good we think they are. And I was worried that we really were just going to bet on some of these guys having bounce back 2020s when there was really no reason to believe that. But today told me that we were probably just waiting for the draft. We wanted to make sure we could get a replacement for Fluker. We wanted to make sure we had done enough to address the interior of the offensive line to allow us to have life without Britt. And that's really probably all it was. So I want to give a shout out to the front office for making what is probably a pretty painful cut, especially with Britt. Britt has been on this team since 2014. He's started a ton of games. Last year, I think, was his first major injury, and he's been a fairly reliable starter for us this whole time. Granted, it wasn't until he moved to center that he really became an effective player, but I can understand why it might be intimidating to move on from him and just bet on these new guys and these rookies to be able to get it done in 2020. But we did it. I think it's the right move. At this point, the only veteran that we're waiting on right now, in my opinion, is KJ Wright. What are we going to do with him? Are we going to cut him to get that $6.5 million back, or are we going to keep KJ Wright on for his last year? And maybe Bradley McDougald, because we do have over $4 million in savings if we move on from Bradley. We do have a young safety waiting to get his chance, Blair coming in off the bench. But I don't think that's in the cards. I think we're just waiting on KJ. So These cuts, let's focus on these cuts. Look, I approve of these decisions. I think they're the right decisions to make. I think it's very clear that Fluker's game had regressed to the point where a guy like a Damian Lewis should be better than Fluker by the end of his rookie season. By the time we get into December, maybe even November, there's a very good chance that Damian Lewis will have elevated his play to the point where he is a better player than Fluker would have been in 2020. And same for B.J. Finney. I think B.J. Finney probably is already a better player than Justin Britt would have been in 2020. So those two guys were not part of the offensive line that I thought would be the best for the 2020 Seattle Seahawks. Problem is, and I want everybody to buckle up for this. I don't know if I'm saying anything surprising to anybody, but for anybody who's thinking about what this means for 2020, there is a very good chance that the 2020 Seahawks offensive line is a bit of a mess to start the season. There's a very good chance that we're going to have actually, there's pretty much 100% chance we're going to have 3 new starters on the right side of the line. Shell, Lewis, who's a rookie, mind you, and Finney. The only returning starters from last year are going to be Dwayne Brown and possibly Mike Upati. And don't rule out Philip Haynes taking Upati's spot one way or the other. We all know Upati's going to get hurt eventually. For all we know, he gets hurt in training camp or preseason. And we also know that Upati is an older player who has issues in his game. It could be Phil Haynes. And Phil Haynes has been here a year at least. So he has a little bit of familiarity with the system, a little bit of familiarity of playing with these players. And he started a game last year. So if it's Phil Haynes, then, that's a little more workable. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a rough couple months to start 2020, in my opinion, because these guys need to get familiar with each other. These guys need to learn how to play together. These guys it's going to be a little bit of a tough, at least couple months, I think. But hopefully, when December rolls around, and if we're lucky enough to make it, January rolls around, and it gets down to, the really serious, important stuff, we're able to take care of business on the front. And I think that these moves are going to help us a lot in the long term. I think these moves have set us up to be better by the end of this season and going forward into future seasons, because Lewis obviously is intended to be the right guard of the future. We're giving him some early experience, assuming he wins the starting job over a guy like Chance Warmack, which I think is very likely. And for all we know, Shell and Finney are going to play well enough to earn contract extensions of their own, and they might be part of the right side of the offensive line of the future as well. So, question now is, who else is going to get the boot from the interior of the offensive line? Because at this point, none of the decisions we're going to have to make have anything to do with salary cap. We're not going to be saving a lot of money by cutting any of these guys who are, realistic targets to be cut. I'm looking at guys, like Chance Warmack, Ethan Posick, Joey Hunt. Who is going to be the odd man out? Because we still have too many interior offensive linemen. We might need to add another tackle because our depth there is a little suspect. And, quite frankly, the roster is starting to get a little crowded in some other positions as well. Tight end, defensive end, especially if we sign a guy like Clowney or Griffin. And we're gonna have to make some decisions there, but that's something that can happen much later. I'm happy. I think all Seahawks fans should be happy. Even if you liked Britt, even if you liked Fluker, it was time to do something else, time to move on. It was time to get better. It was time to get younger. It was time to start the next era. So, what do you think of the new offensive line? Do you like it? Do you like these moves? What do you want to do with the $12 million that we saved today, giving us over $20 million in cap space going forward? A lot of people want to bring in Clowney. That seems like it's a very realistic possibility. Some people are saying Everson Griffin. Some people are saying both. Some people are saying let's trade for Yannick. Some people are saying let's trade for Chris Jones. Maybe there's a wild card like a Carlos Dunlap. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel? I'm just going to appreciate the fact that the team made a couple of necessary moves today, and we'll figure out what they do next at a later date. Peace out, Go Hawks. Catch me on stream tonight.